And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi there. I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Sunday, March 23rd, 2025. And to set things up, by the time we get into Monday morning, area of low pressure that's been southeast of Kodiak Island will just kind of stay in that position as another low rotates up in and across the northern panhandle this Sunday night, early Monday morning. That's going to enhance some snowfall, especially along the intercoastal mountains. There is a winter weather advisory for White Pass above Skagway late this Sunday night into Monday morning. Back to the west, moisture continues to cross over along the Alaska Range and into the southwest interior. We find IFR conditions continuing. There's a stationary front along the west coast, western interior that's going to be in the process of weakening as we head through Monday and into early Tuesday, but there's still is some lower cloudiness and ceilings along with some areas of mainly light snow. Farther west, low pressure and an occluded front will work its way across the western Aleutians with gale force winds. And by the time we get into Monday afternoon, we expect rather widespread IFR conditions, intercoastal mountains, inner channels of the central northern panhandle across the northeastern northern Gulf Coast all the way along Prince William Sound in the eastern Kenai. We'll see IFR conditions by Monday afternoon. Also IFR conditions along the west arm of the Alaska Range down into at least the central portion of the Alaska Peninsula. Also an area of IFR conditions here along the lower Yukon coast, especially in the vicinity of Emonic to areas mainly because we've got this northwest wind push of colder Arctic air plunging all the way past the eastern Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. And then we have IFR conditions there in the western central Aleutians with that gale force front for Tuesday morning. Still IFR here, Yakutat, northeastern Gulf Coast, icy straight corridor on up into the northern panhandle, and then we find IFR conditions along the Alaska Peninsula, and then again along that front pushing through the central Aleutians. And for Tuesday afternoon then, conditions do relax a bit, generally MVFR across the Gulf Coast panhandle, and even up through areas of the Alaska Range, southwest interior, up the middle upper Kuskokwim Valley. And we still have a band of IFR conditions along a diminishing front as it pushes from the central into the eastern Aleutians. Pass conditions Monday, Anaktuvuk Pass will see MVFR conditions in the morning give way to VFR. Same thing, Adigan, MVFR becoming VFR. For the most part, the west arm of the Alaska Range extending down into the northern portion of the Alaska Peninsula. IFR conditions are expected there along the mountainous terrain. As we come up to Rainy Pass, MVFR conditions becoming IFR. Windy Pass may actually see a period of VFR early in the day give way to MVFR conditions. Same thing, Isabel Pass, VFR in the morning giving way to MVFR. And then farther east, Mentasta Pass should generally stay VFR throughout Monday, though as you go south into the Copper River Basin, we expect it to become MVFR. And Tanita Pass will start out VFR Monday morning giving way to MVFR conditions. And then finally, Portage Pass should generally see VFR conditions early in the day become IFR, especially mid-pass out through Prince William Sound as we go through Monday afternoon and evening. Chilkoot and White, generally IFR conditions will prevail there. Again, a winter weather advisory is in effect for that area late this Sunday night through Monday morning. And looking at the freezing levels at the surface, the freezing line is pushed well south of the eastern and central Aleutians as well as the Alaska Peninsula. Brisk northerly component to the wind coming down here along the east side of the Bering Sea and the west coast. This is all because of that colder batch of Arctic air, and that's plunging southward. And then back here to the east, you find freezing levels aloft bump upward 2,000 and 4,000 feet, but that's along and south of Haida Gwaii. Now, where there is precipitation or thicker cloud cover with, you have those super cooled water droplets, long areas of the panhandle, central northern panhandle, Gulf Coast, up into the west arm of the Alaska Range into parts of the southwest interior. We find Potential for moderate icing above 4 or above even 6,000 feet in the southern part of the Panhandle. And then extending further northwestward, we could find some isolated moderate icing above 3,000 feet extending across the western Brooks Range into the Chukchi Sea. And then behind me along that gale force front, there could be some moderate icing above 4,000 feet. And looking at the upper level jet stream winds, we have pretty much a cool trough sitting over the mainland, northwest Canada. Strongest upper level winds, this jet core of 130 to 140 knots from the southwest. That's moving right up into the British Columbia coastline. Behind me we have some ridging. This is a ridge pattern, but on the east side of the ridge, winds upwards of 90 to 100 knots out of the north. That's helping to draw down that colder surface air along the eastern Bering across the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. And then with that next front, we find winds aloft 90 to 100 knots from the southwest. As we come on down to 9,000 feet or 700 millibars, we see the northerly flow over the eastern portion of the Bering Sea, crossing the eastern Aleutians. Where that frontal system is located, we find some winds in the mid-levels, upwards of 50, 60 knots. And then over here, as we get on along the Panhandle coast, southwest winds 30 to locally 40 knots. And then finally bringing things down to 3,000 feet. On Monday, some stronger winds along the outer coast of the Panhandle, 30, 40 knots, also off of the southeast of the Kenai Peninsula. As I step back here, we find northerly flow, 30 to 40 knots from the lower YK deltas, Nunavik Island, and especially across the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. That's allowing that cold air to push south and southeastward. And then here's a band of stronger winds at 3,000 feet. Upwards of 50 to near 60 knots, just again 3,000 feet above the surface. So here out in the western Aleutians, moderate turbulence, surface to 3,000 feet. There could even be some isolated severe turbulence from around Adak westward through Shemya. And then for the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians with that northerly flow, because over here that's a southerly low-level flow. Here's more of a north-northwesterly flow. We find moderate turbulence, Cape Newingham there along the Bristol Bay, western portion of Bristol Bay and the east side especially of Kuskokwim Bay, and then across much of the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, surface to 4,000 feet, there could be moderate turbulence, and then some isolated moderate turbulence, especially along areas of the Chukchi Sea coast, Point Lay to Utqiagvik, and then down through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence, St. Matthew, and Nunavik Island. And then finally here in the southeast along the outer Panhandle coast, there could be some isolated moderate turbulence on Monday, surface to 5,000 feet.